What would a game be without boss fights? Well, I suppose Existential Crisis, the game. Boss fights come in all shapes and sizes, with varying difficulty. For the world of Banjo-Kazooie, I was pleased to see a boss fight encounter in each level of the sequel, Banjo Tooie. These fights can get pretty chaotic, so I did another Chat Makes a Video livestream, where you, yes you, in the chat voted on where to place each boss fight on this tier list. You wouldn't believe how spicy things can get here, and just wait until the Banjo Tooie World's tier list video. Chat gets even more spicy there. But for now, let's go over the results for these boss fights, as well as my own individual tier list. First thing is first, we absolutely need to talk about Klungo. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I love that Klungo's role from the first game to the sequel has expanded. Going from a background minion to earning his moments in the spotlight is a real treat, as well as the amazing character development at the end of the game. I'm a big fan of this feature in Tooie, so let's talk about the Klungo boss fights. And to clarify, all 3 boss fights are being considered as one for this tier list. Overall, this isn't the most advanced boss fight in comparison to others, but Klungo is certainly a step up from the regular common enemies. It's pretty cool that the fight varies from Klungo using 3 different potions. The red potion makes him grow large, hunky chunky. The green potion makes him invisible, gorilla gone. And the blue potion clones him. This is so fitting to Klungo and Gruntilda. I can totally imagine Grunty was working on some killer potions in the past. It caught me off guard when first fighting Klungo. He picked a good time to try these potions out. A tiny detail I noticed is how bruised up Klungo appears for the 3rd and final fight. This poor guy has been given his all for Grunty. There's no way the job has good benefits. Which leads to another great detail, the boss fight subtitles. Naturally, the first fight's subtitle, Minion with a Mission, and the second subtitle, Revenge Seeking Minion, are very fitting. It's the final subtitle, Career Questioning Minion, that takes the cake. Klungo, buddy, I feel so bad for beating you up for a 3rd time. We could have just talked it out and came to the same conclusion. So chat came to the conclusion to vote Klungo at B tier, and I super agree with that decision. The Klungo fights are kind of like intermissions for the story. Before we can just move on to the next world, this minion has to find any and every way to create a buffer between us, the player, and Grunty. I respect the hustle. Now go enjoy that desk job. Let's move on to the first world's boss fight, Targitzan of Mayhem Temple. This boss fight sounds like a decent design on paper, but I find it to be a tad harsh for the first world of the game. Allow me to elaborate. The player is required to learn the new ability, Regal Blaster, before attempting to even start this fight. I actually love the concept behind this ability. Banjo holding Kazooie as a rifle and firing eggs in first-person view is equally a brilliant and hilarious design, especially given the N64 and the transition to 3D games. This design just makes perfect sense. That being said, the controls take some time to master. Look, I've played a lot of N64 games in my life. Regal Blaster and any first-person shooting in this game could use some touching up. Never mind the controls, I just think this is a lot to take on all at once for an early boss fight. Directional movements are completely different from the rest of the game. First-person shooting is brand new to this series. Interacting with idle and moving enemies in first person is new. I'm not saying it's bad, but it's a lot at once for the first time. I might feel differently if this was a World 3 or World 4 boss fight, giving players time to adjust to this new feature, which wouldn't really work given that these bosses are specifically designed for the world they exist in. Anyway, I think I made my point. I struggled with this boss when I started playing, but I'm significantly better at it today with enough practice. But back to Targitzan, I do think this is a cool design. Who doesn't love a good gotcha fake out moment with an easily accessible Jiggy? As for the fight itself, Targitzan spins in the center with targets for the player to fire eggs at. When the bottom totem is destroyed, Moggies come in to attack the player. Once they're cleared out, the next bottom totem spins with more targets to fire at and darts shoot out of his face. Each segment increases in difficulty and speed, but there are stone slabs to shield behind. There's a lot to consider with this fight. Chat was pretty generous with voting Targitzan. They placed him in B tier below Klungo. I want to agree with them, but I find myself placing him in C tier. It just feels too advanced for a World 1 boss fight. I think I would vote higher if the game gave players more time to adjust to the functions of first-person mode. Moving on to World 2, Glitter Gulch Mine, and we have the Great Mighty Pooh. Wrong game. Old King Cole. I find it pretty interesting that this boss fight is arguably one of the easiest to defeat, but one of the most important bosses too. The train is a requirement to access certain jiggies and to simply enter Grunty Industries. One would assume that the boss fight tied to this train would take more effort to defeat. Not complaining though, just an observation. Or maybe that's the point. You need the train, so let's make the boss fight not too difficult. Old King Cole has no specific weak points, so fire at will. A basic beak peck will damage this boss as well, but given that the floor can turn to lava, it's best to keep it safe, stand on a platform, and shoot those eggs. I actually just learned that King Cole can't be damaged by fire eggs, which makes perfect sense after all. Supposedly, he will take extra damage from ice eggs. That's something I'll have to try out one day. It's pretty entertaining that King Cole has no regard for losing a body part. It's just an arm, I got another one. To the point where there's nothing left of him but legs aimlessly walking around. I guess I can give him an A for effort. As King Cole loses more body parts, he turns up the heat by filling the air with suffocating smoke. I don't think I ever came close to running out of oxygen. He just had no chance of winning. Chat was pretty divided on this one. C tier took the lead in the end, but there was a wide spread of equal votes for A, B, and D tier to my surprise. For my own personal list, I placed Old King Cole on B tier, just below Klungo. Next up, we have Mr. Patch for the third world, Witchy World. A fan favorite boss fight, and it's easy to see why. An inflatable dinosaur for the amusement park world is just incredible beyond words. This might be one of Rare's best characters to date, and the name Mr. Patch because he's covered in patches? Alright, you get it. I would have loved to be a fly on the wall for the moment Rare pitched this design. Yeah, so let's have an inflatable dinosaur that shoots beach balls from his mouth, and the player will have to fly around it and shoot grenade eggs to deflate him. Get this man a raise! I 100% understand why chat raved about this boss fight. The character is wacky and fun, a big highlight in the world and game. S tier took the lead with a handful of votes sitting in A tier. But for my personal tier list, Mr. Patch is going to be a little lower, and here's why. The flying and aiming mechanics together are pretty jarring. Each mechanic on their own has some challenges, but together, oh, that's a lot. I know, get good. But I think it would be a little better if the player could fire grenade eggs from below as well. But a red boxing glove is summoned, forcing the player to stay in the air. Trying to find that sweet spot on where to fire those grenade eggs gets frustrating as well. I've taken damage from my own grenade eggs because I was too close to Mr. Patch. Beak Bomb is an option too, a risky option, but an option. As he takes more damage, Mr. Patch gets smaller but moves faster. I think that spike in difficulty makes sense. It's just already challenging to nail those patches to begin with. What with his constant movements and trying to aim while flying. I feel bad for placing Mr. Patch on C tier, I really do. There's just this pit in my gut when I go up against him. Starting over would be detrimental, and I dread that feeling. I think the character is peak, and the overall boss fight design is good, but just needs some love with the mechanics itself. Trust me, I want to place it up higher, but I see room for improvement. Alright, that being said, let's look at World 4. Located in Jolly Roger's Lagoon, we have Lord Woo Fak Fak. Such a unique name. Let's start off with some positives. I think the build up to this boss fight is well done. Thank goodness for Mumbo's sunlight spell. It makes the entire diving mechanics in this world bearable. Say what you will about Donkey Kong 64, they nailed the swimming mechanics. No oxygen meter? Yes, please. Now the Baron Bird can thrive underwater. As we dive deeper into the lagoon, I love the scattered lockers with names labeled on them. And would you look at that? Some of these names look familiar. I love the little hints of David Jones' locker being cracked, indicating that something should be done about that. The boss fight against Lord Woo Fak Fak is pretty similar in design to the Mr. Patch boss fight. There are still targets to destroy on the body of the boss, but instead of flying around, we're swimming around. It's pretty crazy how this E-rated game features blood upon blowing up his boils. I wonder how they managed to sneak that into the game. Of course, this anglerfish needs to attack the player somehow. Energy blasts can come out of the angler, which is fairly easy to avoid. But once phase 2 of the fight begins and his eyes are open, his aim is much better. He also shoots out bubbles to trap the player, making it easier to take hits from those energy blasts. All in all, not a bad boss fight, but it suffers similar problems from the Mr. Patch fight. Swimming around while aiming in first person has the same jarring effect. Plus, trying to find that sweet spot, juggling where this fish is located and when he starts to turn. And if you're a total dum-dum like me, fighting him as Banjo and Kazooie is way harder than using Humbawumba's submarine transformation. I just had not found Humba before this fight and brute forced my way through it. All on the first try too, I might add.
Yes! Let's go! Let's go! Holy smokes, we did it! Oh my gosh!
Chat placed this fight in C tier, just below Old King Cole. And I don't blame them for this at all. For my own list, I placed Lord Woo Fak Fak in D tier. Water levels will always be a tough one to please the crowd. Thank goodness for no air meters, but there's plenty of room for improvement. Let's move on to World 5, Terry of Pterodactyland. The entire setup almost feels like something out of Jurassic Park. Father Pterodactyl just trying to protect the little ones in their nest. It's pretty sweet that Terry is one of the few bosses to be befriended after the fight. It's not all about, I'm the bad guy. Also, Terry gives away the most jiggies as a boss fight, so I gotta give this dino some respect. Which is needed because, the absolute disrespect from chat. Before I give away the results, let's talk about the high and lows of this fight. In general, it's a fairly straightforward fight and easy to clear. I kind of like how this boss fight can start pretty early in the world. The fight starts in a bird's eye view, with Terry spitting at Banjo and Kazooie. Similar to a boss fight like Grunty, Terry is aiming at where the player is going to be, so avoiding these attacks can be tricky. Then the camera shifts back to behind the player as Terry takes to the sky. This is the moment for players to fire eggs at Terry as he flies around. Then, Terry shoots mucus enemies into the nest to attack the player so he can take a rest. Once the player takes out the mucus enemies, the entire routine starts over again. It's just about as simple as the King Cole fight, but with varying phases. So as for the tier list, I was a bit surprised to see you all voted for C tier, below Lord Woo Fak Fak. A lot of votes for D tier too. I'm less surprised to see it in the same tier as Old King Cole. I think that makes a lot of sense. Some of you in the comments stated that the character is interesting, the boss fight not so much. And that's kind of understandable. The different camera angles are somewhat nauseating too. The back and forth is all over the place. I think they could have kept the camera behind the player at all times. For that, I'm placing Terry in a low B tier, also in the same tier as King Cole. Alright, we've had a couple of okay boss fights. I'm ready to talk about a boss fight that I'm very excited about. For the 6th world, Grunty Industries, we have Weldar, the visually impaired welding torch. I joke about this when streaming my first playthrough, but this poor thing looks like it's in pain. The design is freaky, this thing looks pure evil, and he complains about his poor vision due to that bright torch. A whole lot needs to be done just to access Weldar. And this boss fight is considered one of the toughest in the game, not considering the Hag 1. It takes a whole lot to take him out, but the payoff in defeating him is so satisfying. The fight starts off as simple as any other. Weldar shoots blue fireballs at the player. Just keep dodging them until, whoa! Weldar's sucking up the player like a vacuum. Nothing could have prepared me for such a move. It took me a good while to figure out what to do and then how to get those grenade eggs into the vacuum. That's really clever and makes for a chaotic mechanic to this fight. Weldar does not like that, so he spits out some nuts and bolt enemies. And no, I don't mean that nuts and bolts. Once these pesky little enemies are defeated, Weldar will leap into the air in an attempt to squash the player. And according to the Banjo-Kazooie wiki, if Weldar lands on a clockwork egg, apparently it crashes the game. Now that's some fried cheese. The last phase of the fight is crazy challenging. Weldar turns on the emergency switch to activate the electric cables in the ground. This grid pattern really spikes the difficulty as he continues to shoot those fireballs, send little bolt enemies, attempt to squash the player, and continues to try to vacuum suck them. This fight is so intense, and yet I really love it. It's totally a fair game and just requires locking in. He totally kicked my butt, but I enjoyed the journey and kicking his butt for good. I mean, look at him. He's going nowhere. Chat was feeling very confident about voting S tier for Weldar, and I gotta agree with them, right at the very top of the list. This is a stellar design fight, a memorable boss with huge twists and difficulty spikes, but a high reward in victory. I really enjoyed this one, and I'm pumped to see so many of you are on the same page. Do you like pizza? Then you might just be Chilli Billi and Chilli Willy of World 7 Hailfire Peaks. I really like the theme of this world. Not 100% lava focused, not 100% ice focused, but split down the line 50-50. It creates some interesting challenges, including the two bosses of this world. Chilli Billi, the fire red dragon, and Chilli Willy, the icy blue dragon. Each dragon can be found on their respected half of Hailfire Peaks. These bosses are kind of annoying in the same way that the giant Kosha is annoying in Crystal Caves of DK64. So long as the boss is alive, they will actively cause chaos to the environment, which will harm the player. Thankfully, these two dragons can be accessed fairly quickly when first entering the world, so the world becomes all the more enjoyable afterwards. A few interesting observations about these two dragons. No matter who the player fights first, the first dragon will always have 6 HP and the second dragon 12 HP. Not that it makes much of a difference, the two fight very similarly. I didn't realize until now that it's possible to fall off the ledge of the volcano, leading to an instant death. That's pretty brutal. I guess I didn't realize such a thing was possible. Also, not sure if it's just me, but I hear similar firing sounds with these dragons in comparison to Dogadon of DK64. I don't think it's dead on the same sound effect, but it sounds very familiar to me. The fights for both Chilli Billi and Chilli Willy aren't the most complex and just require some patience. Use the cannons to shield yourself from their attacks, and then shoot into the cannon, either using fire eggs for the ice dragon or ice eggs for the fire dragon. That makes a whole lot of sense considering the world's theme. Use the opposite egg to combat the opposite enemy. Then the dragons change up their attack form and use their tongues to lash out. Just simply dodge them without falling off the mountain and position yourself to the next cannon to attack. Keep this up until, well, the dragons are fed up and fly away, revealing their tiny bodies. I wasn't expecting these long neck boys to have such tiny bodies. Chat felt very strongly about this duo, with the majority voting for our first A tier. It seems like the last couple boss fights are starting to win us over. Personally, I found myself really enjoying these opposite dragons even more, and placed them on S tier, right below Weldar, of course. Next up, we have the final world, Cloud Cuckoo Land, against Mumbo Jumbo. Whoa, custom music, what? Oh no, that's not Mumbo, it's a robot imposter, Mingy Jongo. I will never forget that feeling of betrayal when first getting attacked by Mumbo. I mean, honestly, I can't be the only one here. Nothing could have prepared me for this one.
Oh, what? Oh my gosh. I feel so betrayed. These Minjos, man, you can't trust them.
I really like the setup to this boss fight. You're the most vulnerable when entering an ally's territory. There are no giant doors opening to a big bad beast waiting to squash you. It's your buddy, Mumbo, taking a little snooze. Could you imagine going up to Cranky's lab, talking to Cranky, and he whips out a coconut gun of his own? It's also clever how there are two different Mumbo skulls, and the location of Mumbo himself or the boss are entirely random. I'm constantly pointing out how clever Rare can be, and I think this makes the top of their list of clever designs. On top of that, the player actually loses a piece of honeycomb health from the attack in the cutscene, making it possible to lose the fight immediately if initiating the fight with only one honeycomb. So enough about the unique design, let's talk about the fight itself. Mingy Jongo doesn't have the most complex attacks, which is probably for the best considering how tiny the arena is. Just some basic magic attacks and teleporting, and thankfully any attack will take it out. It only takes 8 hits to defeat it, so it's a matter of dodging those attacks and staying patient. And just like Fak Fak, we see green blood once it's defeated. Chet had a lot of positive things to say about this fight and voted for A tier, just above the two dragons. I agree with this decision and have it placed in A tier for my own list. Alright folks, it's time for the final boss fight against Gruntilda and the Hag 1 drill. This finale has a lot on the line and feels very personal. Grunty went way too far when burning down Banjo Kazooie's home, unaliving bottles, zombifying King Jingling, and destroying Jinjo Village. She needs to go down. This drill needs to go down. And after a long adventure, this is a big moment. While it's pretty clear that Grunty is the main villain waiting for the player at the end of the game, it's also neat how the drill is constantly leaving those tire marks to the next world and waits for us at the end with Grunty. You know what's to come. I can't believe how many phases are in this boss fight. I actually think this fight is more challenging than the first Grunty fight. with different variations of lasers coming out of the tank, 5 little seconds to answer Grunty's questions, either making the battle easier or harder for the player depending on if they answer correctly or incorrectly, and dodging her magic attacks while shooting in first person. That alone is a whole lot from a boss fight. As the fight advances, the difficulty picks up, more lasers are activated, and cannons shoot out of the player, with shrapnel firing in multiple directions. There's just so many little ways to take a hit and lose even more health. I'm grateful that Grunty occasionally drops health after blasting her with eggs. I just can't believe how unforgiving this fight can be, and we're not even halfway there. Once Grunty's health is down to 50 HP, we're able to fire those clockwork eggs and enter the rear exhaust port. Then make your way to the back and explode those batteries. I'm really fond of this part of the fight. It's a unique twist, it breaks up the intensity, and hey, it reminds me a lot of Tiny Khan's segment against King K. Rool. The last phase is insanely brutal, and I don't care that I threw in the towel and activated the regen honeycomb cheat. Purple cyanide and mustard gas to lower the oxygen, tossing over minions to attack, all while still firing magic at the players. No, that's enough. If you're gonna cheat, I'm gonna cheat. Let's go, Cheeto. Just like the first game, I can appreciate that a lot of the abilities that we learn throughout the adventure are in use during this fight, and the players need to really know a lot about this game to safely answer Grunty's questions correctly. I think the Hag 1 fight is a hair too much though. Grunty's first fight and the King K. Rool fight are long, yes, but the phases are split out in ways to help the players feel more progress being completed. Hag 1 just keeps going and going. Oh, now the drill moves faster. Oh, now there's more lasers. When does it end? These are minor complaints, but my biggest frustration is the transition from third person to first person. I use Talon Trot a lot to quickly avoid the lasers and cannons, but this ends up backfiring in my face when the fight transitions from Grunty's questions to first person mode, because Talon Trot makes Banjo face the wrong direction. This is just a recipe for disaster, and I took a lot of unnecessary hits. Alright, that was a whole lot of discussion. All in all, it is a fantastic fight at the end of the day, and that victory is highly satisfying. Grunty's head deserves to be treated this way. Chat was feeling pretty good about this fight. It was a close call between S and A tier, but ultimately it got placed high up in A tier, above Mingy Jongo. Meanwhile, I had slightly different opinions. Still in A tier, but slightly below Mingy Jongo. These bosses are tough to vote for because they're all really solid. Even though I was harsh towards some bosses, I think the character designs are all very solid, and the fights themselves just need little touch-ups. Again, Mr. Patch being a fantastic design. I want to place it on S or A tier, I just need to see some quality of life updates. As always, these Chat Makes a Video streams are a blast to create. A huge shout out to everyone involved with this live stream. You are all awesome, and it's been a real pleasure to be a part of this online community. I look forward to making more of these with you all in the future. Seriously, the more the merrier. And a special shout out to the members for supporting me and the mods for keeping the chat safe. Be on the lookout for that Banjo Tooie World's tier list video. Chat got very spicy for that video, and I'm so pumped to get this out for you all.